This is Can You Relate with Christine, but it's less can you relate and more can you relate with Christine. Let's talk about expectations. Human beings are very fickle, unreliable, unpredictable creatures. And as such, human beings can't be trusted when it comes to emotional experiences and expectations of emotional experiences. Now, no matter what relationships you have in your life, whether they're with family, whether they're platonic with your friends, whether they're romantic, whether they are professional relationships, as long as you are involved in some sort of a relationship, there is going to be some level of emotional charge in that relationship. It's a big spectrum. It can be on the lower end, mid, high end, it doesn't matter. But as long as you're involved in something, some part of you is going to be emotionally attached to a certain extent to that interaction or to that experience. Now, as such, any experience that you have is going to be subjective. It's not personal, but it is subjective. What I mean by that is you and another person could be experiencing the exact same circumstance, but each of you is going to experience it emotionally differently. One person may have a neutral experience, while the other might have a terrible or excellent experience. So we have a tendency of taking otherwise neutral circumstances and creating a story in our minds, internalizing it, making a meaning out of nothing or out of something, or making a mountain out of a molehill. We take things and we make them personal when they aren't personal. They're subjective. They're not personal. There's a difference. So expectations, they are either met, exceeded, or unmet. I have learned, and it was a very long and strenuous path to learning this lesson. And I'm not saying that the lesson is done, that I've learned it and then that's it, chapter closed. Just like with every lesson that you learn, there are different layers to it. You continue learning it in different ways to different degrees. So this isn't okay, I learned this lesson, it's one and done. This is just, I had an insight, I'm sharing a reflection, I'm aware of this particular thing, and I don't know how it might unfold in the future. So the lesson that I have learned, or lessons that I have learned about expectations from other people, is that the more expectations you have of others, the more disappointed you are going to be, because no one is ever going to meet your expectations. And I know that that sounds bleak, but it's not. Hear me out. Having expectations of people is setting you up for disappointment and setting them up for failure, because no two people have the exact same level of consciousness. No two people have the exact same level of capacity that they can give, emotional capacity, energetic capacity that they can give to other people or to the other person in the relationship that they're in. And this is something that took me quite a while and quite a few relationships to learn, because I have a certain capacity. I have a certain level of consciousness. It just is mine. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's not more than other people. It's not less than other people. Subjectively, I'm at a certain level. I might see other people as more than me. I might see other people as less than me. But that is only because I'm at a specific vantage point. Someone else might be at another vantage point and could see me more than them, or they could see me less than them, which is what I mean by life is subjective. It's not personal. So my vantage point of my capacity, whether it's emotional or energetic, of holding space, of showing up for other people, my vantage point of my level of consciousness is just that. It's mine. So a lesson that I have learned is, yes, that everyone has different capacities and different levels of consciousness. What I used to do before is that I would expect people to meet me where I am at. And because I would expect them to meet me where I am at, I would be disappointed by them. If I would compromise and try to meet them where they're at, and they still wouldn't be able to meet me, that would disappoint me. And that created a lot of resentment towards different people in my life. That made me feel that a lot of people that I've interacted with are very selfish, and that there's something wrong with me, or that I'm going crazy, or that I'm damaged, or I'm unlovable, because no matter what I do, I can't seem to win. I can't seem to have people in my life actually show up for me in a fraction of the way that I would show up for them. When I moved past the disappointment, I realized that having the expectations of people is not fair for me, because I'm setting myself up for disappointment, and it's not fair for them, because I am setting them up for failure. It's like asking a fish to climb a tree. It's not within their capabilities. So I'm asking them to do something that they are not capable of doing. And when they don't do the thing, I'm disappointed in them. So I realized that that's not fair. Not just to me, it's not fair to them. Because in them failing what I'm expecting them to do, I am creating this villainized version of them in my life. I'm making them the villain of my story. I am building up resentment. I'm building up hate. I'm just building up a lot of heaviness that is kept within me towards these people. So they don't know that I'm upset with them. They don't know that I have this sense of heaviness that I'm carrying with me. This heaviness is affecting me and only me. So when I started to realize that this was a tendency with my relationships, I sat with myself, and a lot of different light bulb moments happened, which led me to realizing that, okay, I'm operating from one level, other people are operating from another level. In the past, what I have done before I came to realize this, what I would do is that I would stop having expectations of other people. And that made me sad, because that just felt very isolated. It felt very lonely. It felt very depressing to say, oh, I have no expectations of people, because people are always going to disappoint me. On one hand, it did protect me, but on another hand, it really felt very isolating. And it felt very sad, because when someone would do the bare minimum, which I didn't even expect the bare minimum, so when someone would do the bare minimum, that would make my day. Until I realized that, okay, wait, I don't deserve just the bare minimum every once in a while. I deserve above and beyond. The bare minimum isn't enough. When I used to think that I was worthy of only the bare minimum, that shifted to, okay, wait, no, I am deserving. I'm fucking deserving of love. I'm deserving of effort. I'm deserving of people showing up, of people compromising. I'm fucking worthy. So when I started to really believe that about myself, when I started to truly believe that I am fucking worthy, that's when I realized, you know what? I don't want to not have expectations of people. I don't want to have such a bleak outlook on life. If people disappoint me, okay, fine. I'll expect some sort of disappointment, but I don't want that to be the rule. I want that to be the exception. I want to enjoy my relationships with people. So what I started to do is I started expressing my expectations. I would say, okay, listen, this is what I'm capable of doing. This is what I can bring to the table. In return, I expect 1, 2, 3. So in a way, I was kind of doing their job for them, their job in the relationship for them, and telling them, okay, listen, if you get bothered by something, tell me. If you're not going to tell me, I will ask you. So I really would create such a safe space, not just for their sake, more so for my sake, so that I felt like I was doing the best I could to make sure that I was really enjoying these relationships, to make sure that these relationships could be the best that they could be, at least from my end. So I was removing as much quote unquote work as possible so that the other person could truly show up to the best of their abilities. So I was making it easy for them to show up for me. And one such example is when I'm having a rough day, let's say, I would go and talk to someone, whether it's my sister or a friend or my parents, and I would tell them, listen, I just want to vent. I don't want any solutions. Let me just vent. Now they know what I expect of them. They know I expect of them to just sit and listen, and I can just show up and just vent. Other days, I would step into the conversation and say, let me vent. When I'm done venting, I want your help finding solutions. And this started to really improve the quality of these interactions within these relationships. And it started to reciprocate. I don't know if that makes sense. It started to apply to them as well. So when they would show up, I would ask them, okay, do you want to vent? Do you want advice? Do you want solutions? Do you want some motivation? What do you want? I did that honestly so that I know how I could show up for them in the best way possible, so that I could understand what they needed from me and I could give them what it is that they needed. So these people, they started to understand how this improves their relationship, and they started to do that too. So when they would come to me, they'd tell me, listen, I have a bad day, I just want to vent. I'm like, okay, cool. I didn't even have to ask them. They started to express themselves, and that felt empowering, not just to me, because I felt like, okay, I feel safe with these people. That felt empowering for them too, because they felt like, okay, wait, what do I want? I want this. Okay, I know what I want. Now I'm going to ask for what I want. So it was a very enlightening experience. It was a very empowering experience. It still is, because this is still how I show up. Now, the hiccup is because us human beings aren't very fluent with the language of our emotions. A lot of times people say one thing without realizing that they don't really mean it, or they feel something and they don't know how to express it. So a lot of times I've noticed that people cannot be honest with themselves. And if they can't be honest with themselves, they can't be honest with you. And they can't show up in a way that is transparent or in a way that is real, because they don't even know what's going on within them. So I started to realize that I would express my expectations, the other person would express their expectations, but they wouldn't actually do what they said. And this kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because it felt like, okay, now what? I am meeting me where I'm at. I am meeting you where you're at. But now it seems that you don't even know where you're at. So how am I supposed to meet you? Where am I supposed to meet you? I realized that there really is no winning in interpersonal relationships, because you are always going to have a little bit more expectations of other people than maybe you might be willing to admit. And sometimes you might feel guilty of having these expectations of them. But two things can be true. You can experience two emotions at the same time. You can be understanding of the other person not having a lot of energy in their life to be able to show up for you. You can understand. And you can also feel upset that they didn't prioritize you to some extent. And this is a hard pill to swallow, because it made me realize that no matter how many times you have an open conversation, you do your best to be honest, to be vulnerable, to be authentic, to express yourself, to create the safe space, not just for the other person, but for yourself as well, something is going to get fucked up. Not in a big way, might be in a big way, I don't know. But something is always going to get fucked up, because human relationships and emotional experiences, emotional relationships are extremely nuanced. You might not feel the same way about the same thing today as you did 2 weeks ago. Expectations will lead to disappointment, but that's not necessarily a terrible thing. It's something that allows you to fine-tune your relationships, because it really highlights the nature of relationships, which is that relationships they're not easy. They require work. They require two people to show up. It takes two to tango. There are two people involved in a relationship, and two people have to show up and do the work. One person on some days might have to do more work than the other. On other days, it might be equal amounts. On other days, maybe none of them feel like putting in work. It's never going to be the same because human beings are unpredictable, because life is unpredictable, because there are so many variables outside of our control. Relationships are not, it's not that they're hard. I was about to say relationships are hard, but it's not that they're hard. Relationships, just like anything else, just require nurturing. That's it. Relationships require nurturing, and nurturing differs. There are different developmental stages, there are different developmental needs, depending on so many different variables in life. So relationships require nurturing, and the quality, the frequency of this nurturing is not going to be the same. It's always going to change. So when I say that expectations cause disappointment, is because when we expect things from a place of black and white. Versus, and this is what I'm learning, expectations to be on a spectrum. It's not black or white. Expectations are a spectrum, just like emotions are a spectrum. And this is what is crazy about this human experience, is anytime you think that you've figured something out, that you have developed a specific pattern or a habit or a coping mechanism, and you think that it's one and done, nope, it's not one and done. Something at some point is going to happen, and that thing is no longer going to work, and you're going to have to adapt. But life, expectations, emotions, just the human experience is not black and white. And this is a lesson that I am learning in so many different ways, through so many different experiences. It really is not black and white. It's a spectrum, period. And that's crazy how the same lesson needs to be learned so many different times from so many different perspectives. And every time you learn it, or you learn a new version of it, it's like a slap in the face, because it's like, oh, but I thought I already learned this lesson. I thought I already understood that, okay, fine, life is not black and white, but really, it really is not black and white. So yeah, the human experience, man. What can I say? And on that note, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, comment, subscribe, follow, because it really supports the podcast and it really pushes the content out. And I will see you next time.